The SNK 40th Anniversary Collection is an interesting set of games. I like retro games, and I could play SNES, Mega Drive and some select NES games anytime and have fun. I'd never heard of any of the games in this collection, so I didn't have nostalgia to impact my thoughts on the games. I was unsure whether I would enjoy the collection, so I was surprised that I did actually have a good time, but I have a few reservations that stop me from outright recommending it. Let's look at the games first. There are 14 games in this collection that cover a range of genres, from shooter to beat 'em up to platformer to a Zelda-style adventure game. Some of the games had the option to play as the arcade version or the console version. Back in the 80s, arcades looked so much better than the console games, but seeing the same game arcade versus console was really shocking to see the extent of the downgrade for consoles. These games with console versions aren't just changed in terms of graphics. The games themselves were altered so they're more forgiving than the arcade, and I could see that when I played. The number of enemies and overall difficulty was reduced in the console versions. Of the 14 games, I'd say I enjoyed playing around half of them. 2 I disliked, and the rest were just fine. My favourite games in the collection were the twin-stick shooters like Gorilla. They worked really well on the Switch and was still a lot of fun to play. Prehistoric Isle, a side-scrolling shooter, was fun too. These are games where I would constantly die, but thanks to the rewind feature I could just rewind a few seconds and keep playing. I loved having that option when playing these games, because the idea of restarting levels is not appealing. There were 2 games that I just did not enjoy, Athena and Street Smart. The controls were just horrible on both these games. I just couldn't bring myself to play them for too long. Psycho Soldier was just crazy, and worth playing for the soundtrack and voiceover. One of the best features of this collection is the watch mode. You can watch the computer play each game and have a perfect run. This is a cool feature if you find the game tough, but what's even better is that you can take over from the computer and play at any point. So if there is a tough boss you can't get past, then you can let the computer play for you. Once it gets you past that stage, then you can take over. I found it such an awesome feature. You can fast forward it too, so you're not waiting around. You can only do the watch option from the start of each game, so you can't just play for half the game and let it take over for you for a section you're struggling on. Nevertheless, I really like this element to the collection. There are other extras like a museum with concept art, game soundtracks and game adverts. These are fine. I like that they're there, but in reality I just spent a few minutes looking at it, and probably won't look at it again. So some of the games are fun, there's some cool functionality, so why is this not a definite recommend? Well, firstly, the price and number of games is not as great as other recent and upcoming collections. The Sega Mega Drive Collection, or Genesis Collection in the US, is coming to Switch next month. The price in the UK is similar, but it has 50 games compared to 14 in the SNK Collection. There are another 11 games coming for free in December to the SNK Collection, which is great, but even looking at it against the Nintendo Switch Online, which is cheaper for a year subscription and gives you 20 games plus 3 more each month, it just feels light. I also didn't find the games particularly addictive. I like them and will happily try out the 11 games that will be added in December, but it feels more like a fun distraction rather than something I'll be playing again and again. In comparison, I know I'll play the Streets of Rage games and Shinobi games again and again, so would keep the Mega Drive collection on my Switch. So overall, I enjoyed my time with the SNK collection, and as someone that enjoys retro games, it was interesting to play this set of games that I hadn't even heard of before. But I don't feel I'm going to be playing this collection long term, as none of the games hooked me as much as other retro games. Maybe that's because I don't have the nostalgia connection with these games. I will be keeping on my Switch for now to play the additional games when they're released. I'd love to find some classic games in that set, but right now I find it hard to recommend just based on these 14 games. If you're a fan of retro games, there is fun to be had, and I think this collection will be more appealing to people more familiar with SNK arcade games. So guys, are you planning to pick up the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection? If you played these games before in the arcades, I'd love to hear what you think of them now. Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching.